We've spent a lot of time exploring the interface of AutoCAD in the previous chapters and sections. I did this because I wanted to make sure that you knew how to work in AutoCAD and that you were comfortable navigating it. But enough is enough. Let's learn how to draw. That's why we're here. The focus of this section and the next few chapters will be on how to draw in AutoCAD. It's likely that the most common object used or created in AutoCAD, especially for 2D drawings, is the line. You will use lines, to create lines. You will use lines for construction. You will use lines to find your right place. You will use lines in so many different ways. The line is universal. A line is defined as all of the points between two specific points. So it's also one of the most easiest objects in AutoCAD to draw. You just pick two endpoints. Just 2 clicks of the mouse and you're there. But even though a line is very simplistic, there are many ways to draw a line in AutoCAD. To start the line command, you can go to one of several different places. You can use one of several different methods. It's up to you. On the ribbon, on the Home tab, the first panel, which is the Draw panel, you have the first icon, which is for the line command. Click that, and your command is started. Remember to follow the command prompts in your dynamic input and on the command line. They will tell you what you need to do. Obviously, now we need to draw our first point. Click one, anywhere. And now as you move your crosshairs with the mouse, you can see where the line is going to go. Your dynamic input will give you information about that line. Right now, this line, if I were to click again to create the second endpoint for the line, would be 14.28 units in length and drawn at 17 degrees. Very simple. Once you click that second point, you can continue drawing from that last endpoint to create another line. And you can keep going until you finally decide to stop. Press the Enter key, press the Escape key, right-click, or hit the space bar. And that's it. And that's how you draw a line. That is the most simplest way to draw a line. It's to pick 2 points. Now, there are many other ways that you can also draw a line. A lot of times, a line is not arbitrary. In fact, the majority of the time, you need to draw your line in a very specific way. Well, there are many ways available to us to do that. If you're starting a brand new drawing, it can be difficult to figure out where to start. I suggest that you find a line that you can use as the base of all of your other lines and go from there. In this example, we will draw a very simple outline of a house. Let's erase all of these lines. Type in E, then Enter for the Erase command, then select everything. Or you can select everything and then hit the Delete key. So let's start a new file. Type New in the command line. Browse to the template folder if it didn't open up there for you already. And let's start with the tutorial arc DWT file. Click Open. This file will probably open up for you in what's called Paperspace. We'll talk more about Paperspace later on. We've mentioned it before already, but we want to make our drawing, create our model. And you put your line work in the Model tab. So come down to the bottom of the screen, find these tabs, click on the one that says Model. This is where we're going to draw. Quickly check your units. Type in the word units and make sure we're working in architectural type. Precision of 1/16 is fine. More importantly, we want to make sure we're using inches. And click OK. With this setting, we will be drawing as 1 unit equaling 1 inch. So let's start the line command. Let's put our first point at the origin or at coordinates 0, 0. So come up to the ribbon, click on the line command, or just type in the word line or just the letter L. Since we have just started the command and have not picked up point yet for our first point, AutoCAD is assuming that we're looking for coordinates. So type in 0, 0, press Enter. Now remember, while you're in a command, you can use your mouse to pan around or zoom in and out as needed with the middle scroll wheel. We're going to draw a horizontal line 50 feet long to the right. And when working in architectural units, you draw in inches. There are 12 inches to a foot, so 12 times 50 equals 600 because we want to draw a 50-foot long line that's horizontal to the right. So you can do that math all the time if you would like to, but I suggest you don't. You can type in 50 and then an apostrophe for 50 feet. And if you need additional inches, like 6 inches, you can type that in. But 50, then apostrophe, will draw a line at 50 feet long. Now to draw this line horizontally, or to the right, you can do that one of two different ways. The easiest way is to toggle on your ortho by pressing the F8 key. Just like that. Or if you don't toggle it here, you can come down to your status bar and click on the button here. This is the ortho mode button. Ortho mode will lock your drawing cursor or crosshairs into drawing orthogonally, which means just a horizontal line or a straight up and down line. Your line or your object or your movement will be constrained to following one of the two axes, in this case the X and Y axis. So we draw our line, we pull it to the right, and we type in 50 feet and press enter. Press enter again. Select the line. Hover over one of the blue boxes or the grips and you'll see that this is a 50-foot line. Excellent. Now we want to start the line command again. Press the enter key and that will automatically start the last command you were using. Type END for end or end point. This is an O snap we're going to use. We'll go into greater detail about O snaps, but O snaps will help you draw precisely. They will grab specific places on your objects, like the end point of a line. Move your crosshairs over to that end point of the line on the right, and you'll see a green box or glyph come up, and the word endpoint. It's telling you that you are grabbing the end point of that line. Left click. Now we're drawing our line again. We want to make this line 30 feet vertical. With the ortho still on, move your crosshair into the direction you want the line to go. Type in 30 and then the apostrophe. If you leave off the apostrophe, AutoCAD will assume you mean inches. And we don't want 30 inches, we want 30 feet. If I move my crosshairs down to the bottom, then the line will go down. Or if I type in a negative 30 with my crosshairs up here, it will also go down. But so far we're correct. Press enter. And there's our line. Let's draw another line 50 feet to the left. Now remember, AutoCAD is directional. Whichever way I move my mouse, that's the way the line is going to go. I can tell it 50 feet, and it will go in either direction in which I'm moving my crosshairs. So move to the left, type in 50 feet again, and press enter. And now we want to come down. We can just snap to the end point here, or we can tell it to go 30 feet down. Whichever one you want to do. Press enter, and there is the start to our side view of our house. And that's what you need to do. When you start a drawing, you need to make sure that you put in a line that you can work with, a base point, a starting place. Once your line, everything else in your drawing off of that. It gives you a starting point. You can also draw lines in many different ways. You can draw them at angles. Now let's put in a roof. Let's go to the top right corner. Over here, start the line command again. Go to this endpoint, press END, enter, pick that line, and now let's go to the right 5 feet. Or you can type in 60 inches, which is the same thing. And that gives us our 5-foot line. Now let's go to the other side and do the same thing. Start the line command, type in end, grab the endpoint, go to the left 5 feet, enter. Press enter again, and here we go. Now you can also draw lines in what are called a polar coordinates. A lot of the times we're drawing in a Cartesian coordinate system, but AutoCAD will also allow us to draw in polar coordinates. Drawing in polar coordinates means that you will be drawing lines based on length and angle, not just distance or direction. To do this, start the line command, pick a point, turn off ortho, type in a distance, 12 feet, press tab, and then type in an angle, 35. There you go. That is a polar coordinate, a distance and an angle. You'll find that you'll use this trick time and time again. Let's use it now, actually, to draw in a roof gable. Erase this line. Now let's draw the gable. Start the line command. Type in end for this endpoint. Put in a distance, 40 feet. Press the tab key. And I've predetermined already ahead of time what angle we're going to need. Let's type in 138.59. Press enter. And there you go. That draws a line right to the middle of our roof. Type in E and D again, and click there. That's a pretty steep roof, I know, but we're learning how to draw in AutoCAD with lines and with polar coordinates. A lot of times in AutoCAD, all you'll have to do is draw half or part of your object, and then the rest will automatically fall into place. Similar to this last line when we drew, and then this last roof line. Now, one thing that we can do, and let's erase these two pieces, so we can draw to other points besides an endpoint. Start the line command, type in MID for mid or midpoint, press enter. The triangle glyph will show the midpoint. That's the middle of our house. Turn on the ortho command, and let's draw a line up 20 feet. Press enter. Now we know where our peak on our roof is going to be. Start the line command again, type E and D, type E and D again, press enter, pick that point. Now type E and D again, enter. And if you mess up typing in the dynamic input, you can always go back. If you type in something that's not possible, that AutoCAD doesn't know what to do with, you saw that red box come up and it says, hey, I don't know what to do with this, please tell me again. That's fine. You can backspace or delete what's inside there and type again. You can also use your arrow keys to navigate inside the text. There through my examples. And there we go. Now we can delete that line. And that's basically it in a nutshell. But before we go, let's review something about drawing with coordinates. If you enter in coordinates for the first point in your line, as we did to start our house, they will be absolute, meaning that those are the coordinates where your first point of your line will be drawn. If you enter in coordinates for the second point, they will be a relative distance from that point. So if you need to draw your second point to an absolute set of coordinates, start it by pressing the pound key, then enter the coordinates. For example, start the line command. Enter in 5, 4 for the first point. That is an absolute point that is going to the coordinates of 5, 4. And that will be in inches in this case, as you can see where it is. Now type in 6, 4. These are relative coordinates. It went not to coordinate 6, 4, but it went 6 units over, 4 units up from our previous position. Exit out of the line command, start the line command again, and this time type in 5, 4. And remember, your first point will be absolute points. There is no other point for it to be relative to, so that's why. Press enter, and we're starting at the exact same starting point as we did with the other line. Now, type in the pound key, then hit 6, 4. Press enter. Enter again. 2 very different lines. this line and this line both start at coordinate 5, 4. Now the coordinate for this one is at 6, 4, which is what we told it to do. And we told this one to go over 6 units and up 4 units. So it is at coordinates 11, 8. So keep that in mind. A lot of times you will find drawing in relative coordinates. If something needs to be, 20 feet long or 20 meters long, you can tell it, I want to go 20 units to the right and 0 units up. And you have drawn an horizontal line, 20 units in length. So that's the basics of drawing with lines. There are a lot of different ways to do it, through absolute coordinates, through just random points, picking the first and the second point, through object snaps, through distances and angles, and through other coordinates. A lot of the times, you will just start a line, making it very long, or at least long enough, and going from there. If your coordinates are irrelevant and you don't care what coordinates you are in, then try to draw close to 0. That will make things a bit easier to manage in the long run. If lines are single-segmented objects connecting 2 points, then polylines are line segments in a connected sequence created as a single object. That means that they're lines, or maybe even arcs in some cases, with multiple vertices. Polylines are great for contour lines, wire diagrams, piping drawings, extrusion profiles, pathways, or even a closed object. When a polyline is closed, meaning that there is no real beginning or end, it's called a polygon, which is a closed, multi-sided shape. You can create a polyline with several different commands: p-line or pline, rectang, polygon, donut, boundary, and even rev cloud. Pline or p-line, depending on how you want to say it. Because it's just the letter P, then L-I-N-E. That will be your most commonly used command to draw a polyline with. And we'll talk about the other options in a later section. Each of them have their place. In fact, we've drawn many polylines already using the rectangle command. I like to use the rectangle command as a great example because it's very quick to do. 2 points, and you have a nice shape that's easily defined, seen, and worked with. But drawing a polyline can be accomplished using the exact same methods that you draw a line with. So the previous section here in this chapter will be applied directly to a p-line exactly in the same way. After all, a polyline is just a set of lines that are connected together. You can draw a polyline, or p-line as they're often called, just using coordinates, relative coordinates, polar coordinates, length, just 2 points, etc. Lines can also be drawn as arcs. You can even switch from line to arc while you're drawing a polyline. And when you go to edit them, you can do the same thing. Polylines are very versatile and have many functions. In fact, I know several CAD drafters that don't use lines. They use p-lines because you can do things with them that you can't with a regular line. So start the polyline command. You can come up right here in the Home tab on the ribbon to the polyline, and you can see that it has multiple points here. Or you can type in p-line. The command alias for polyline is just PL. And that's what I typically do. I'll just type PL, then press enter. Drawing a p-line looks just like drawing a line. Pick a point. I will turn off my ortho command. Pick another point. And the nice thing about lines and polylines is that when you're done, you can type in CL for close, and it will close your object. You can do the same thing with a line. Type in line, and just pick at least 3 points. Hit CL, and it closes it. It will draw your line or polyline segment from the last point you entered to the first point you entered. This is a line. To pick this triangle, I have to select each line. Each part of this triangle is its own object. Now in this shape, a polyline is only one object. Now I can grip edit this very quickly, changing the shape dramatically. I can even convert them to an arc and stretch them out. So very quickly I turned that odd shape into an even odder shape. You can't do that with regular lines. I can move it and things like that, but that's all. So polylines are a bit more versatile than a regular line. Let's erase these and get everything out of our way. Let's start with the polyline command again. PL. Pick a point anywhere. Let's draw a vertical line 10 units long. Turn on your ortho command and type in the number 10 for 10 units. Where you're at. Now, as you draw, you can do different things. Let's turn the ortho command off. And as you see, down here, we have many options for the polyline command. We have arc, close, which we showed you already, half width, length, undo, and width. Most of the time, you're only going to use arc, close, and width. Now, a line has a width of 0, but a polyline can have a width added to it or set to it. A width of 0 means it's just the arbitrary default width on your screen. If you set a width which will be controlled in units, the actual width of that line will be that wide. We'll look at that in a little bit. But type in the letter A, press enter, and now we're drawing an arc. This arc will be tangent to the previous line that you drew, as you can see here. You will be deciding on the chord length and relative to your last line. And you can continue drawing arcs just by picking points. And they will all be tangential to each other. Now to draw a straight line again, hit L, enter, and now you're drawing a line. Now that line will not be a tangent line to that last curve. It just starts from that point and continues on to wherever it is you pick. You can come up with some very interesting shapes with the polyline command. After you draw a polyline, you can use the p-edit command for polyline edit. You can do that to make changes to it. Type p-edit right now and press enter and select the polyline. This command has many options available. You can close a polyline into a polygon with the close option. It will draw a line from wherever you were on your last point to the first one. Now this is a closed shape. The join command or option will combine other polylines together into one polyline. But keep in mind that their endpoints will have to be at the exact same places to be joined. You can use what's called a fuzz factor that will draw a segment in to fill the gap if necessary, and you give it a maximum size. So if your gap is at least this big or less, it will draw a segment between the gaps. You can edit a vertex by moving it, taking it out, or adding a new one with the edit the vertex. You can also change the width of the polyline. Let me show you. If I click width and I type in 1 for 1 unit, that line becomes very thick. I can also make it thicker. I can keep going. Type width again, type in 0, we'll put it back. Now what happens if you put in a negative width? Click the width option, type in -5. Nothing. It must be a positive number. Just press escape to get out of the polyline edit command. You can turn other objects into polylines using the p-edit command. Start the command and then select your objects. So if we have lines, like this shape here, it consists of 4 different lines. We can change them into polylines. Start the polyline edit command, press enter, and now select your objects. And it will ask you, do you want to turn it into one, meaning a polyline? Because as you see on the command line, it says down here, object selected is not a polyline. Do you want it to turn into one? Hit Y for yes. And now we can join it to the other lines. Press enter, and enter again to close the command. Now you see, this is one polyline. And any object like a line or an arc can be turned into a polyline. Polylines are a bit more versatile. You can do a lot of things with them. We'll look more closely in how to edit them in later sections. But polylines are great, and you're going to use them, and I encourage you to, because you can do other things with them as well. Since they are a closed object, you can very easily create a hatch inside them. That fast. You can change your pattern very quickly, very easily because of it. You can draw lines and polylines now, and now you're going to need to know how to draw circles. Circles are used for many things: holes, different designs, wheels, gears. I can go on, but you get the idea. A circle is very simple. In geometry, it is defined as all of the points that are equally distant from a single point. To draw a circle in AutoCAD, use the circle command. Just type circle on the command line, or just the letter C for the command alias, or click on it up here in the draw panel on the home tab in the ribbon. By default, you will be asked for the center of the circle as the starting point. Pick one, anywhere. Then you will be asked for the circle's radius. Enter in 10 units in this case. Press enter. Zoom in or out if you need to. Now there's your circle. Very simple, very easy to do. You may though want to create a circle according to its diameter. Start the circle command again. Pick your first point. And now instead of clicking your point again, you can go to the command line and click on the diameter function or option, or type in the letter D. Remember on the command line, when it gives you additional options, and they're highlighted here, the blue letter at the very beginning, which is typically just the first letter, but will oftentimes include the first 2 or 3, that's all you'll have to type in. You don't have to come down here and click. Just hit D for diameter, press enter, and now type in 20. We just drew the exact same circle, and just in a different way. That's important to know, because sometimes you have the diameter, and sometimes you have the radius. So, well, if I have one, I know what the other is. That's true, number-wise, but oftentimes when you're drawing in AutoCAD, for example, if I have this line and this line, and I need to draw a circle, what do I have? Do I have a radius or do I have a diameter? Well, that depends. If I start circle and I draw from this endpoint and I want to draw to this endpoint, I have a radius, not a diameter. That's true. But if I want the circle to come to the middle of these two lines, I will need the diameter. I'll show you the difference. I'm drawing with the radius now. So I will type in end for my endpoint and draw there. That's my circle. Let's start again, the circle command. Type END for endpoint, or snapping to the endpoint of this line. But now hit D for diameter. Press enter. As I stretch, I'll type in end again and go to the endpoint of that line, and there you go. I just found the middle point between these 2 points and drawing a circle. You'll find situations similar to this while you're drafting. You won't always have just the radius. You won't know where the center point is. You won't know where the end point is. You'll need to have to draw a circle in a different way. Well, that's good, because you can. There are other ways to draw circles inside AutoCAD besides using the center and radius, or center and diameter. Those other methods are drawing a circle by 3 points about the circle. Another one is by drawing 2 points about the circle. And then the third option that you will have here in this list is drawing at 2 tangent points and a radius. Say, well, how will I know when to use what? Well, that's great. We'll look at an example. Open up the file that came along with this training video from the 5th project chapter and go to the Circle and Arcs example file. Click open. This is a very simple example of some ways to use the different methods of drawing a circle. The 3-point option allows you to draw a circle based on 3 points along the circle. So start your circle command, and instead of picking your center point, click on the 3P option or type in 3P. So let's say we have these 3 lines. We don't know where our center is. We don't know where anything is really. All we know is that we need to come from the middle of this line, the end of this line, and the end of that line. So let's pick our first point. Type in mid for midpoint, press enter. Look for the green triangle glyph in the midpoint tag, click. Now type in E and D for endpoint, enter, and click up here. After we get 2 points, AutoCAD will generate a preview of our circle. It will always pass through the midpoint here and the endpoint there. We don't know the radius or the diameter or the center of the circle, but we do know that we need it to pass through the endpoint of this line here. Press enter, and there you go. We drew our circle. Very simple, very easy to do. Let's try it again. Type in 3P, enter. Pick 1 point, pick 2 points, and now the 3rd point. And there you go. The 2-point option works exactly the same way, but with 1 less point. Let's draw it. Start the circle command, type in 2P for 2 points, press enter. Now I want to show you a new object snap. It's called quadrant. Just type in QUA, and this will snap to the quadrant of a circle. And that means either the left or right most points, or the top and bottom most points. If you look at the center of a circle and draw a plus through it, a line straight up the y-axis and a line straight across the x-axis, these are the points on the circle that you will snap to. Pick here. And now we can have our circle go anywhere. We can draw a lot of different shapes. If you turn on your ortho command, just as we did with the line and polyline, we will draw this circle either across the y or the x-axis. There we go. Press enter to start the circle command again, and the circle command will always default to the center point radius drawing method. So if you want to do anything else, you have to tell AutoCAD that you want to do it differently. Type in QUA again, and there we go. This is a good start to a snowman. Now let's look at the other option that was available to us. If you start the circle command, you can see we have the 3P, 2P, and the TTR, or the tangent radius. Just type in the letter T and follow the instructions on the command line. It's asking us to specify the point on an object for the first tangent of the circle. So let's say we have these 2 angled lines. We want our circle to be tangent to this line and tangent to that line. So you will see that the glyph is up here of a tangent line with 3 ellipses. That means it will draw it tangential to this line, and now to this line for our second point, and now we have to give it a radius. Let's give it a radius of 5 units. Press enter, and there you go. This circle is tangent, as you can see, to that line here, and it is also tangent to this line. That can be very useful when you're trying to figure out an arc for 2 different ends. You use the trim command, just type in TR, press enter, select everything, hit enter again, click the circle, and then click the line, and then the line. And now you've created a nice rounded corner for your object. When you type in a radius or diameter for a circle, you can either type in the value, but you don't always have to do that. You can just pick your point. So keep that in mind. The 3 parallel lines that we had here were 3 units apart, but you can pretend you don't know that. Just draw a circle. We're going to erase this one first. Start the circle command, pick an endpoint, and then for the radius, you can pick the endpoint again. And there you go. I didn't know what that radius was, but they are at 10 units apart. You can draw circles in a lot of different ways with a lot of different methods. Which one you pick will depend on the information you have and what you're trying to create. This chapter gave us the tools we need to look at the data in our files. Let's start by opening up the ice rink example file here for chapter 7. Click open. Imagine that we were given this AutoCAD drawing by our supervisor so that we can take some measurements on it and help make some construction estimates, something that's very practical and often done. So that's what we're going to do for this chapter project. AutoCAD can be used for more than just drawing things. Once something is drawn or modeled, we can use the CAD to get real-life information about things very quickly, and we can even perform some calculations. We need to know the area of the ice rinks. We have 3 of them here. So let's open up the Properties palette. Press Ctrl+1 to open it up. Now let's select the outer shape of the rink and read it off. Right here. It's a closed polyline, so we can get the area very quickly and instantly right here. Now this is in square units, and for our sake of argument, that's all we care about. We don't really care what those units are, just that they're in some sort of unit. So we see here that one area is 17,221 square units. All 3 rinks should be the same size. Well, let's pick them all. We still have this one selected. If you've unselected it, go ahead and pick it. Select the second rink, and now the 3rd rink. And now we see that the area is still the same for all 3. One thing you can't do with the Properties palette is get a cumulative area of polylines. Now, hatches you can, but we don't have enough hatches to add everything up. Well, we could do some basic math and just multiply this number by 3, and there you go, but we don't want to do the math, do we? So let's get the total. Let's use our measure geom command. Come over here to the Home tab on the ribbon, into the Utilities panel, and click on the measure arrow and click area. Now remember, we want to add all 3 areas up together. So you have to start with the add function. So type in the letter A for add, and now O for object. No need to pick all of this. We'll just select our objects. Once all 3 have been picked, we'll press enter, and we see our individual area, the perimeter, and our total area for all 3, which is what we were looking for. Again, press F2, and we have our total area right here. Now we can copy this out, paste it into an email, and send it off to our boss. Project done, we're ready to go home. Not quite. What's the perimeter of the rink? So, okay. Well, how are we going to do that? Well, we need to find the distance. We want to find multiple points. So make sure you type in M for multiple points, but not until your first point. If you start off typing it in, AutoCAD just gives you that, hey, invalid point. What were you doing? You dummy. Do it the right way. So we pick our first point. Now we can tell it M for multiple, or you can click right here on the command line. And we just want a quick estimate here, so we won't go through all of the details, just the major ones. Remember, your scroll wheel can pan, zoom, and move you about while you're working inside this command, which is extremely useful. I suggest that's the way you do it, as opposed to using the pan or zoom commands transparently, as we discussed previously in other chapters. But using these tools in the middle of a command for something like this makes everything so much easier. Pick your last point, press enter, and there's our distance, or our perimeter, 1,477 units and some change left over. Now that we have this information, we need to clean up this drawing for our boss, because he wants us to email it to the client. So let's make sure that it's as small as it can be and that we don't give the client anything that they don't need. So start the purge command. Let's make sure the purge nested items have been selected, and we do want to get rid of everything, so hit the purge all items, click close, and there we go. So now we're ready to send this file once we've saved it and get it to the client in a small and efficient manner. Oh, wait a minute. The boss just came up and he says that he wants to add another rink into the plan for the client because they requested it. Well, that happens all the time. We need to get our blocks and our layers back. Okay, well, we haven't closed the file yet, so it's still safe, even though we saved it. So what we need to do is go back to undo and get rid of the purge. All right, now let's test it out. If we type the purge command in again, yep, everything's still listed. We're good to go. Save the file, and we're ready to draw another rink. But of course, then we're going to have to get new measurements. There will be many times when you need to draw an arc. An arc is a portion of a circle or an unclosed circle. When a circle object is broken, it becomes an arc. There are many ways to draw an arc. Make sure to pick the one that suits your situation the best. Going up to my file tabs, I have them open for this time. Right-click on the file tab area and click open. Browse to this section and look at the file called Arc Examples and open that one. So here we have some line work already created for us. Bit of a little caliper or bracket and a series of lines and other things here that we have. So we have this line work set up for us so that we can go ahead and work right in with our circles. Now the arc command defaults to the 3-point method. It's similar to the 3-point method when drawing a circle. Let me show you by completing some of these things here. So if we go to the Home tab on the ribbon and into the Draw panel, see here there's a button for the arc. And if we click this flyout, we get a lot of different ways to draw an arc. Typically though, you're going to use the 3-point command. And it creates an arc, as you see here in the example, using 3 different points. And they're numbered 1, 2, and 3. And that's the order in which you create them, 1, 2, 3. So number 1 is first, number 2 is second, and then third is your last. You can start the arc command just by typing in the letter A and press enter. Now I'm going to complete this thing here. I'm going to snap to my end point. I'm going to type in end. Snap to it. There's my first point. That's where I'm starting from. Now I can click anywhere. So I'm going to click just right here. And as you can see, it holds the first and second point. The arc will always start at the first point and pass through that second point that we picked. Now the arc's shape, its radius, its length, etc., will depend on where I put this third point at. And I can put it anywhere. And as you can see, the arc changes dramatically depending on where that third point is. I'm just going to snap to the end point of here. There you go. And once you create an arc, you can see here that it can be stretched, the radius can be changed, you can do a lot of different things to it. So if I just grip edit here, it'll bulge it out some more. I can click and edit here and move it around. I can even change the center. This is like using the move command. Press escape to let go of the arc. So that's the basics of an arc. The majority of the time, that's all you're going to need are those 3 points. I'm sure you noticed when I started the arc command, there was a center option. So when we start the arc command, in the command line, you can see here are some more options. Arc, specify start point of arc or center. So I can start the arc command at the center point. So I'm going to click center or type in the letter C. Now the arc is asking me for the center point. I'm going to pick the end point of this shape here. So that's my center of my arc. And I'm drawing now my start point. So I'm going to click here with my end command for my snap. I'm going to snap to that end point. So it's starting at my same start point I had before, but at this defined radius. So as I stretch my cursor left or right, it draws the circle. Now notice, wherever I start from, by default, a circle or an arc are drawn in a counterclockwise direction. I'll zoom out a little. As I spin around to increase this angle, which I can just pick anywhere, or I can type in the amount of degrees that I want that angle to be, see, it goes in a counterclockwise direction. Now, if I hit the control key on my keyboard and hold it down, it will toggle to the other direction. It will now go in clockwise. So this is what you have to do. It used to be before in AutoCAD that you had to know where to start to get the right angle in, the right direction. But this is a change that's happened in more recent AutoCAD versions. So this is a really nice thing. The end here. And now it looks like I have this Pac-Man looking shape. So that's a nice little option. This will make your first point the center point of the arc, and it will make you draw all sorts of arcs. So now you have two ways to draw an arc, from a start point to a point in between and then to an end point. Or now you can start at the center and get your start and finish points and at that defined radius. Now, you don't always know these points. That's what's great about the arc command. Majority of what you're going to need for your arc command are the two that I just showed you. But let's look at some of these. They're going to make sense. They're very straightforward. So remember, go to the ribbon, go to the Home tab, and into the arc. If you click on this button here, you'll get a quick definition of how these arcs are going to be created. So we saw the 3-point arc. We also have a start, center, end. This creates an arc using a start point, center point, and an end point. Now, it's a little bit different. So if I click start, center, end, now it's asking me for my start point. So I'm going to type in END to this point here. And I'm going to create an arc that stretches all the way across here. Now it's asking me for the center point. Now, there are options here that I can use in my command line. You may have more tools available to you by following the command line. Right now it's asking me for the center point. So I'm going to type in CEN to snap to the center point of this arc right here, because I'm going to parallel it. You can see the little O snap coming up. Click it there. And now I'm going to draw my arc. Now it would come on this side here, but because by default, remember, it starts where you first pick your start point, and then the arc is drawn in a counterclockwise manner. Hit the F3 button to toggle on my O snaps. That way I know I'm going to automatically snap to this endpoint. But I want the arc to come the other direction, so I'm going to press and hold the control key, and now it toggles the direction of the arc. This makes drawing the arc much more easy. Snap to there, and I've created that arc. I'm going to delete this one so we can see a little better. So I was able to create that arc right there without any issue. I didn't have to make any measurements. I didn't have to know any radius. I didn't have to know where the center point was, no coordinates, no length, nothing. I was able to fill in that arc exactly the way I wanted to. I can do the same thing with these circles here with this same command. So I need to find my start point. It's going to be there. And my center point, which is going to be here. In this case, I'm going to have to hold down the control key again and snap to right there. And I was able to finish that. It's a very useful command. If I went with my regular 3-point arc, but I hit C for center, enter again, I'm going to start at this center point, use this for my start point. I have the radius, I have the center point, it's just in a little bit different order, and I can control it again. Very useful, and again, you don't always have all the points you need, so you just need to go through some of these. Another one you have here is the start, center, angle. It creates the arc using a start point, the center point, and you put in the angle. I want a start point. Let's say I'm going to start here. And now it's asking me for the center point of the arc, right here, and it's asking for the angle. Now, if I know what that angle is, I can type it in, but if I don't, I can just snap to that point, and there it goes. So a lot of these are variations on a familiar theme, or on the same sort of theme. What these commands are doing for you is that they're macros. If I start with the 3-point arc creation command, I can start at an endpoint or I can start at a center point. So if I start at the center point by either typing in the letter C or by clicking on the command line, the center option, I'm now drawing something from the center. I'm going to start from the midpoint of this line. Now I have options. I need a start point. So I'm going to start here at the end point. And now I can just click down here and it draws my arc. I can type in the degrees that I want, or I can go by a chord length. So I can click here for angle or L for length. Hit L, then it's not asking for an angle anymore, it's asking for a length. And this will give me the length of that chord, which is this line right here. You understand the definitions of angle, chord, arc length, etc. You'll be able to use the arc command in a lot of different ways. Now you can also hit a start end direction. So if I click a point here, hit my center point, and then specify an end point for my arc, I can do one of these things. This is a nice option if you want to create a bit of a smooth arc. So if I click here, that defines my chord. Now I can come and draw this in a lot of different ways. I can match this line here, and it gives me a nice little symbol. You can do a lot of different things with it. We've looked at several of these different arc commands. This is your standard 3-point. This group uses the start and center and then varies on that. This one uses the start and the end, and then it'll go by angle, direction, or radius. And these here start you at the center point, then go to a start point, and then we'll go by end, angle, or length. So depending on what you have and what you know and what you're trying to create, that will determine which one of these arc creation commands you want to use. Like I said, the majority of the time, your 3-point arc is going to be fine. Now, another command option that you have in here is called the continue. So if you have an arc, just any arc anywhere, made by any of the methods shown, and then you want to continue that arc, but with a different arc, you can use the continue option. What this does is draw an arc tangent to the last arc that you've made, or to another line. So if I click here, you can see this is very sinuous, tangent to each other. I have a line drawn, and I want to continue that line, but with an arc. So I come up to the arc command here in the ribbon, and go to continuous, and it makes an arc that is tangent to that line. Now, when you use all of these other commands and you hit the enter key, it will restart the arc command, but it won't restart any of these special arc commands that you've used. It will only restart this regular 3-point arc command. So in the case of this continuous, if you want to keep using it, you're going to have to keep going back to this continue arc command option. So keep that in mind when you just press enter to restart the arc command. It won't give you your specialized variations of the arc command. It will just give you the basic 3-point arc creation command. And also remember, if you draw it and it's in the wrong direction, that's okay. Press and hold the control key and that will flip it around. That can be very annoying when you're trying to create an arc and you see that, oh, I've done it wrong. That's okay. Hit the control key and pull it down, and that will flip it around the direction, and that'll solve your issue there. Sided closed shape. In AutoCAD, it's also a polyline. There is a command called polygon. With this command, you can draw shapes from 3 sides all the way up to 1,024 sides. Typically, you would probably only want to draw about 3 to maybe 10 sides. And there is a case where you want to draw 360 sides, which is essentially a circle. But it's good to know that you have options available to you. You can type the word polygon right on the command line, or you can use the command alias, which is just POL. It's also found here on the ribbon, polygon. Now it's very simple. You enter in the number of sides you want. So if you want to draw a pentagon, you would type in the number 5 and press enter. And now you need to pick the center of your polygon, and you have an option, an inscribed in the circle or circumscribed about a circle. So what do those mean? Well, what the difference is and what this means between an inscribed or circumscribed is that we have a circle. Just imagine you have a circle. Let's give it a radius of 5 units. And you want to draw a polygon. We want it to be 5 sides, and the center of your polygon will match the center of the circle. The inscribed method will draw the hexagon inside the circle, and a circumscribed polygon, or hexagon in this case, will draw the shape on the outside. So think inside. As you can see, while I go to pick my point of where I want it, I can type in the radius, which would match the radius of the circle, and I would pick my location. So I can snap with an NEA or a near, and I will pick anywhere on this circle. And there's my pentagon. Now if I start the polygon command again with 5 sides, match the center of the circle, and instead of inscribed, I'll go circumscribed. When I pick somewhere on that circle or use the same radius, the polygon is on the outside of the circle. So those are the two differences. The inscribed will draw the shape, in this case a hexagon, from one of the vertices or the vertex. The circumscribed will pick from the midpoint of one of the edges. So depending on the information you have and what you're trying to draw, that will determine your method of drawing it. Now there's another method as well. And when you put in the number of sides, this option comes up. Instead of picking your center point right away, you can type in the letter E or click on the edge. Now this will draw the polygon in a very different way. It will draw it based on your edge length. So I pick my first point, and that acts as a pivot point for my shape. And now I can type in the distance for that leg or side, and then I can type in the angle. I type in 5 for 5 units, press tab, and I'll type in the degrees, 90 degrees, so this leg will be straight up. And there you go. So you really have 3 different ways to draw a polygon. And you can make it any number of sides. Remember, it can be as few as 3, but no more than 1024. Pick a point, inscribe, and here is my octagon. So there are a lot of different ways to draw a polygon. And a polygon is really just a closed polyline. Once you draw it, it doesn't retain its shape if you grip edit anything. Once I make changes, that shape is no longer what it was when I first created it.